Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Looking for Love in All the Wrong Dust Jackets, a show where three disgruntled harpies talk to you about everything we love in romance, whether that's books, movies, TV shows, whatever we like. My name's Liz.
I'm Danny.
And I'm Wiggles.
And welcome to the episode. Today we are talking about Her Soul to Take by Harley Laroux. But before we get into that, I have to warn you, I got to let the people know that we are crass and unhinged. We're rather unladylike when we're going to talk about all of the bedroom activities, which there are a lot to talk about today.
There are indeed.
And we're going to use all of the 4-letter words to do so.
And the 5-letter and 6-letter. And if you don't know what those are, look them up.
Thanks, Wigs. Anyway, why don't you tell us about Harley?
Harley is a writer of new adult erotica, erotic horror, and dark romance. They enjoy crafting steamy stories on the dark and kinky side. The creepier, the better. Harley lives in Washington with their husband and 3 cats. They love horror. They love horror films, not just horror. Dry red wine, and almost always have a candle lit. Most days they can be found at their desk drinking tea with at least 1 cat in their lap. Vibes. So yeah, they're on like apparently every fucking platform. They're on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, Twitter, everything but the TikToks. So you can find them there. Some of their other books, obviously in the Her Soul to Take, there's also Her Soul to Revenge and Soul of a Witch. And then the 2 books in the Losers series and Dirty First Dates. So check those out if you are looking for more Harley Laroux.
Danny, do you want to tell us what this book's about?
So this book is about Ray. She is a kind of, I don't want to say wannabe because she hasn't really taken off, but wannabe paranormal investigator. She has a YouTube channel and everything, and she has moved back to her hometown to go to college, and she's doing a little investigating of this like church, old church that is, you know, there, and she accidentally summons a demon. Whoops. She didn't really think it would work, and she didn't mean to bleed herself. She did. And then Leon, who is the demon, who has been held and tortured by one particular family for generations at this point and kind of having to do their biddings. And this family is sacrificing people to what sounds like a nautical god to me.
It was very Cthulhu-esque.
It was very Cthulhu-esque. That is down in these mines. And the whole thing is that there was a mine collapse. 3 people made it out. And so now the god wants sacrifices from each of that family. One of them being this fucking family. So this guy is going to murder his own kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure is.
But Leon and her like each other, and he wants her soul to be in his possession so he can keep her forever, which is mildly creepy, but also, aw.
I'm disagreeing about the awe, but okay.
But so let's discuss.
I want to start off at the very beginning of the book because here's my take on the pacing of the book and how it made me feel. The beginning of the book, I was like, oh no, this was hyped up and this is bad. Because it felt like fan fiction. It reminded me of reading like Twilight era stuff. And it wasn't until we kind of got over the whole like, we're at college and there's this security guard that doesn't like me, and got to the demons and cults, and I was like, okay, this is good.
I agree. There is that little hump that you kind of get over, and then you're like, oh, okay, so there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and the reason he's there is because he's been ordered to be there because she's supposed to be the sacrifice because she's...
Yeah, it was almost like up until Ray did her accidental summoning, I was like, I don't... Mostly because I was sold on the back of the book being like, oh, and she accidentally summons a demon. And I'm like, cool, that's the hook. It needs to happen. Well, that's the inciting incident. That needs to happen early. Didn't happen early enough.
I think I had more grace for that as a benefit of not reading the back of the book because I didn't know. I knew there was like some kind of like occulty kind of stuff about it because I knew enough about the book that way. But like otherwise, I had no idea what this book was about. And so I was like, okay. And I just like kept going like that. I'm like, okay. But I did sort of have this moment. I was like, at what point point, is this going to be not the same book I've read 100 times?
Yeah.
I also did not read the back of the book. I also at some point have read this book and didn't realize.
Good job.
Because that's how my brain goes. Because like it started, I was like, God, this sounds really fucking familiar. And I had put it in the audiobook, but when I first started the audiobook, it like jumped to the very end and I was like, what the fuck? What you doing? And I rolled it all through to the front of the book and everything. And then it started talking. I'm like, oh, the reason it jumped to the back of the book is because I've read most of it on my Kindle. And it was like, this is where you left off. And I'm like, it's a little terrifying that you know that. But, you know.
Well, it's all set up to do that.
Technology.
And then when it started talking, I'm like, oh, this does sound really familiar.
Well, I found myself, as soon as I realized, like I started putting 2 and 2 together and I was like, oh, because I kind of like read the briefest of synopsises about halfway through. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna like look up this book and look up the series and like how long is it, and so I read the like synopses for the next 2 books and I was like, oh, you know, one thing I gotta give absolute credit for is this author nailed like the setup for the other 2.
Yeah.
They matter, but they also are in no way at the forefront, and you're like, oh, I think I'm having a very similar reaction as I did to the first of the Dreamland Billionaires series, where I know for a fact that I would like second one and third one better than the first one.
I had that same reaction, especially once we met Juniper and Everly. I was like, oh, those bitches seem way cooler than Ray. Because no offense, Ray is like the every fucking YA romance main lead.
Yes. And I think that's part of why it felt so tropey and familiar and like redundant. I was like, you gave her glasses. How quirky. Like, I was like, otherwise, what is the difference?
So I think what they were kind of going for is I think they went a little lighter on this one because it's the first one. And I feel like they're going to go real much more dark in the other 2.
At some point, we just have read too many books.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I mean, honestly, though.
Yeah.
It's getting hard to do our recommendations because I'm like, I know I've read something like this. But who's to say what it is?
That's always been my problem with our recommendations because I'm like, I've read so many fucking books at this point. And for years and years before you guys realized that I also read the smuttiness and brought me in on this. For years and years, I didn't even half the time know what the name of the book that I read was because I was just like, oh, this looks good, and read it and didn't even think about what it was called, and I didn't rate it on Goodreads or anything. Nobody needed to know. Nobody needs to know.
Except now we all know.
Except for everybody knows.
One thing to Ray's credit, though, is I did like that she had this whole like paranormal investigator thing. It at least had some interesting aspect. Yeah, there was some interesting aspect to her character. But the classic, oh, I'm out on my own and my parents moved away and oh my gosh, this is my hometown.
Which I have beef with her father, by the way.
I have massive. That's one of my notes.
I got questions too, because it's like everyone else seems to be like, yeah, your dad was totally like, I guess we'll sacrifice my kid, and then he's like on the phone with her and he's like, yeah, you should stay away from those people, it's like really bad, like I don't know, but like it's chill though, but it's bad, but like also don't talk to them.
That's my biggest thing. I was like, Kent makes it sound like he knew fucking everything about what was going on, Kent being the big bad guy, the father that's gonna sacrifice his kids and all this stuff. But it's like, what, her father clearly knows this was happening. Why did he let her go to school there?
That was one of my notes. Once we find out from Kent that Ray's dad definitely knew all of this. He was a part of the like cult, or like grew up in the cult and like chose to leave. And then let his daughter go back, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing?
Well, and then with that phone call is so confusing because he's so like chill about it. He's like, don't talk to them, but also it's fine. What? How are you not immediately going, you don't talk to them, you come home now?
Yeah.
You don't even let her go there to begin with.
And that's my biggest thing is he should have sat down and had the conversation with her, because I understand like she's an adult, she can make the choice of where she goes to school and everything, but there should have been a conversation that said, hey, sweetie, I get that you want to go there because you want to relive your childhood, blah, blah, blah. However, this place is dangerous. These people are going to try to kill you.
Right.
Stay away. Go somewhere else.
It sort of makes the interpretation feel very like he did know, he is still on board, and he's like, here you go. I don't want to see it happen, but like, you know, she's there now.
Well, yes, but also no, because if that was the case, you'd expect he would have, I don't know, either like
told her to be friends with them or something.
right, instead of telling her, oh no, don't talk to those people.
Right. And so
I'm confused.
the
with that
motivations
situation.
are not written well, I don't think.
I would agree
think
with
this
that.
is a writing failure, and unless there's something I missed that I was supposed to pick up on.
Well, all three of us missed it then.
Yeah.
And I would agree with that because there's a couple other moments in the book that felt like writing failures. So skipping way to the end, there's that moment when Leon goes to distract the Reaper and tells Ray to go drive away and hands her his summoning name so that she can summon him once she's far enough away. And instead of following that plan, which seems like a sound ass plan to me,
Yeah.
stops the car and runs into the woods. And it's like, bitch, what the fuck are you gonna do?
But she loves him.
But yeah,
Gross.
it just felt like there were some motivations and decisions in the writing that were purely just to get us to where the author wanted the plot to go, instead of like ones that made sense for the characters to do.
Yeah, when she turned around, I was like, bitch, just go 2 miles down the road and summon him.
Right. I mean, you don't want to go too far because based on what he said and what we saw, he ain't gonna last long.
Yeah.
Right. But here's the other thing is that the author already set up tools to use to facilitate getting her back there and not looking like a dumbass.
Yeah.
Right? Like these golems that are apparently running packs, right?
Yeah.
There's no way he's killed all of them, or that's how you set it up if you're the author, right?
They could have been in the road.
Yes, and they capture her and take her back.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think when they were writing this, the thought process was, I'm going to make sure that I get my puzzle pieces or my chess pieces really in place for where I wanted them to be, but kind of forgot that you got to play the game to get them there.
Right.
And so there were a lot of things where I was like, but why? This is not serving the ends that you want to achieve. But you know, I also had a moment like that I was super confused about with the whole party scene. And so, you know, trigger warning for anybody out there.
Absolutely.
Ray ends up getting roofied by Jeremy, who we'll explain in a little bit. And that happens to be the first time that Leon has come back, right? He was like, I'm gonna go do my thing because I'm a tough guy and I like do whatever I want. Meh. Well, that's what they all sound like to me. And so he's been gone for a long enough time that Raylan's been like very concerned about where he is, concerned about her own safety, yada, yada, yada.
It's been about a month.
Yeah. And so she's at this fucking Halloween party, and that's when he chooses to show up. And she ends up getting like this like flirty, like dancey thing with, is it Juniper?
Yeah.
And
Juniper.
Zane. And they're basically like, bitch, you've been roofied. And she's like, no, I haven't. And so they go and they like help her out and they get her to throw it up and everything. And Leon's reaction to that is, I saw you dancing with those other people. What, you'll just get with anybody now? And it's like, bruh, you've been gone. Like, she don't know you shit. And it's like, that setup doesn't make sense unless like you've established that there's something. But they're not something at this point. They're like, they've at best are fuck buddies, right? So
Yeah.
And you're trying to snatch her soul. So like,
well, that's the classic thing
Yeah.
in a lot of these books where the big tough guy is like, oh, we're not going to be together, but also you can't be with other people.
yes.
Though
which
he
is
did
annoying.
say that he didn't mind her being with other people so long as she had his mark.
Yeah. Well, there seems to be quite a bit of like polyfluid, gender fluid,
Yes.
sexuality fluid going on in like the demon community from what we get of Zane and Leon. So I guess that part doesn't surprise me, but it's also your bud Zane who you like fully got her off in front of.
Yeah.
So like, maybe we don't need to be all like grumble, grumble. I'm tough guy, grumble.
Yes, that kind of like got me a little bit. I will say just that party scene in general, I was like, Ray, you a dumb bitch.
Yes.
You a dumb bitch.
Her driving to the party, because the other thing is she has an excellent friend, but she hasn't clued her in on anything that she is like.
Which I understand.
I understand not cluing her in on the like finer points of it, but she hasn't really clued her in on maybe not trusting Jeremy and Victoria.
Yeah.
Which would be something to maybe just, even if I were to say to one of you guys, hey, I get a weird vibe from this person, it would still put you guys a little bit on alert of things.
Yeah, but remember when we were 20, 21, right? That's the big other thing here is these people are that young.
They still don't have that prefrontal cortex going.
Yeah.
She is 21 and I am 37.
Yeah.
So, and if we like do a little mental time machine to back then, if these people were, so if we like think about life back when we were 21.
No, thank you.
Fair. Inaya, who is Rhea's like best friend from childhood, is also friends with Jeremiah and Victoria for however long, we don't know, maybe the entirety of college, we don't know. And so it would be like really hard to go to your friend that you haven't seen in a long time and say, hey, those people over there that you're friends with are giving me like weird vibes.
Yeah. I will say, when Anaya finds out that Jeremiah roofied her, it's fuck his fucking shit. And fuck Victoria if she knew about it too.
Right. I don't get why Ray decided to go to the house
in the first place?
In the first place for the Halloween party, and then just started taking random drinks. And I'm like, you are the dumbest bitch.
Yeah, she started, when they were like, people like she's allowing him to hand her a drink. I was like, girl, you know to be leery of him.
Yeah.
Why would you drink anything he hands you? I would have pretended to take a drink and then the next opportunity dumped it down something.
I feel like that was another moment where the author could have given us just a little bit more to make it believable. Like Jeremiah really, really pressuring her in a way that she felt like she couldn't get out of.
Problem is that's not the character that they wrote, right? So we're asking this character to be streetwise and be cognizant of her surroundings. She's clearly fucking not.
Yeah.
Like, her priority before we get to all this like demon and occult stuff is that she wants to be the best paranormal investigator. So she willingly goes into creepy abandoned spaces, and the creepiest thing about abandoned spaces is that they often aren't totally abandoned, right? There's just this complete naivete to her entire character, and it's kind of the only justification for her behavior. So she leans on that really heavily. Does that make her an annoying character? Absolutely. Is that the reason the author can justify the things that she does? Yeah.
You could also make the argument, and this is just maybe a little bit of rewrite corner with Danny, that maybe her dad overprotected things a little bit as she grew up, so that she does have the naivete a little bit because he knows all this shit was going down, but that would have had to have been written in.
Isn't backed up,
I know,
by the one interaction we get with her dad.
That's why I said it's rewrite corner with Danny. But that could be a justification for it if her dad is aware of all this cult shit, which again, he should have had a conversation. God damn it, I have so much beef with her fucking father. If he knew about all of this, which it sounds like he did, maybe he overprotected.
Again, I don't know, because it just seems like a bad writing moment, because there's no proof either way that either he's fully in on it and sent her lamb to slaughter, right, or that he like protected her. The only other piece of information we get is that her grandpa always said that he believed in all of this stuff, but that her dad said all of it was hooey. So like,
hooey or not, there's still people who believe it and are gonna try to,
and he was one of them. So like it just that is a really weak spot for the author. And I'm not really big on throwing out headcanons to fix someone else's writing.
No, I know.
We do it all the time though.
It's true, but I'm not a fan.
I will say the one really plot point that I really liked, since we're kind of talking about the cult, is the cult.
Yes.
I'll be honest with you, I liked it more than the romance.
Oh, see, I had the opposite. I was
really?
Just like, can we be done with this? Because it was so predictable.
Oh,
I saw every change happening, or I was like, oh yeah, he owns a demon, and the demon doesn't like being a demon. That sounds about right. We got to make him relatable and lovable in some way, right?
He likes being a demon just fine. He just
doesn't
doesn't like being controlled.
Sure, whatever. Yeah,
I mean, who would though?
Yeah. And but he doesn't like killing for somebody else. Okay, great. So he's a murderer, but he's a tame little tiger kitten murderer. He's not a real murderer.
Oh no, he's a real murderer.
Oh yeah,
he owns up to being a real murderer.
Oh yeah,
he just wants to choose who he murders and not have somebody else do it.
Anyway, the point stands. The point stands. It's a predictable plot there. And then
Yeah, that's the romance. The one I said I didn't want. I wanted the cult one.
the cult, that is the cult. Like, so then the cult
No.
thing is like, oh, well, we're gonna like sacrifice 3 people. And it's like, oh, you watched television in the 90s. Good for you. So we're gonna sacrifice these 3 people to this god who's going to take over. And plot twist, one of the kids doesn't want to get murdered, so he's like, I'm gonna murder my sister. Like, it just wasn't, nothing about it was unpredictable. And I don't need it to be unpredictable, but I do need it to be something that I don't have to be halfway through the book and go, yeah, can we just get to the end, because this doesn't, like, yeah, we know, we're aware.
I guess I didn't have that. Was it predictable? Without a doubt. Nothing was surprising. But I did like the atmosphere that was created a lot. It
I
felt
do too.
very Eldritch horror, reminding me a lot of Lovecraft. And there's a specific Lovecraft that I cannot remember, but it's the fish people one. And like, I guess I just really was vibing with that, especially I was reading on my walks. Leaves were falling. It was very autumnal. It fit. It was a happy time.
I think there was more of that at the beginning. Like, it had more of that aesthetic aspect to it, but as we got farther along, it was just like, do you want this little bit of gossip about this plot that's going on in the background? And you're like, yeah, I guess. And they're like, oh, it's exactly what I thought it would be. Okay, thank you.
I just had like the exact opposite reaction that you did. Like literally everything you're describing, but flip it around.
Yeah,
That was me.
Absolutely. Me too.
I was so ready for this book to be done. I was
Oh,
like, can we just
man.
have the sex and like get rid of the rest of this, because we know how it ends.
Yeah, like yeah, it wasn't surprising by any means, but
No, it's hard to surprise me in ways like that
Well,
though anymore.
that's the other thing. I wasn't expecting anything that wasn't like already written. Like, I'm going to actually seek out a true thriller if I'm going to try to get something new and exciting. So it was just like the vibes were vibing over here.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
liked it a lot.
I think you're conflating my, like, me wanting there to be mystery in the story. It's a romance novel. If you surprise me, you get like all the gold stars, because it doesn't happen, right? But like, if I go to watch a movie and it's a horror film, there are some predictable things that are going to happen in that horror film. But you still have to have me engaged from the beginning of the story to the end of the story, or why am I even here, right? And that engagement for me was not, because I was just like, you're going for the easy answers and you're going for the easy choices, and so it makes it predictable.
Yeah, and that was okay for
Yep.
me.
Same. I will say, okay, so I was not clear. So did Kent actually kill himself, or did Jeremy kill him?
That was the other
Neither.
thing.
I think it's Juniper.
My thought process was that Juniper did
Probably Juniper. Yeah,
it.
you're right. That may be something we find out in the next book or something. But
Yeah.
I think we can't be 100% sure because we don't have the most reliable information coming to Ray, but there's either in Leon's perspective or Ray's perspective, I can't remember, there's a line that he seemed genuine in his belief that Leon had killed him.
yes, that
Yeah.
it was coming from Jeremy.
Jeremiah.
Jeremiah. I keep doing that. I don't know why. It's coming directly from Jeremiah to her when I think they're in the grocery store when he's trying to kidnap her.
Yeah.
That he thinks that either Ray or Leon killed him. So it must have been Juniper that killed him.
That's my thought process as
Yeah.
well.
Or Everly. It could have been her too.
Well, and that's the other thing is there was one kind of throwaway line when Victoria calls Ray, which I really don't understand the reason of that phone call, but
Right, because she's dead like hours later.
yeah, where Victoria says, what child would kill their own father? Which makes you think at first it's Jeremiah, but then Jeremiah is like, no, thinking that Leon did it. So I think it's either Juniper or Everly.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of maybe leaning towards Everly purely from what Victoria said.
It may be Everly. She's been against her father this entire time. She's just kind of been working in the shadows. And she has an archdemon. Good for her.
Yeah, I want to know more about that, but that's book 3.
But so she is a witch. She got that from her grandmother's side. And if I remember right, because I think I kind of glazed over that situation, you know how my mind wanders. But she's their half sister.
Yeah. So what happened is Kent, before they're born, so Everly's actually older than Victoria and Jeremiah, had an affair with this super powerful witch lady.
Yes. And so she's their half sibling. And so she's a super powerful witch, and she's been kind of working in the shadows. And the reason that the grimoire got taken away from Kent is because Everly hid it. And then Ray's friend found it in a book and gave it to her because she thought it looked cool and everything, and it was right down her alley. And
Yeah. Yeah. So that was another aspect of the book that I was like, what? I understand that Everly took the grimoire and stashed it.
mm-hmm.
But somehow that box ended up being donated to a bookstore that Ray's friend runs.
or works at.
I was very confused.
Yes. So from my understanding, so Kent runs the Historical Society.
Yeah.
And so the Historical Society was donating a bunch of books, and I don't think she meant to put it in one of those boxes. She just meant to kind of stash it in the general area so that he wouldn't know where it was, and it got sent there. Because also he's like the big, hometown philanthropic rich asshole.
It's always those bastards.
It
You gotta
really
watch out
is.
for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, the only other person that I thought could possibly be Kent's killer was Victoria herself.
Mm-hmm.
I did have a moment where I was like, "Oh, good for you," and then it was like, "Oh, she's dead, so probably not."
Probably not.
The only reason that I think that maybe that is a possibility that she killed him is that she called Ray hysterical. And so maybe she had just done it and then called her to let her know that, it's over, whatever, and everything. And then, of course, Jeremiah being Jeremiah, if Victoria knew anything about him, she knew he wasn't going to let that stand. And then he murked her.
Were Jeremiah and Victoria twins?
I think so.
I think so.
Okay.
What I remember. The other reason I think it could be Victoria is she said something like, "Well, it's done now, so you don't have to be worried about it anymore," which makes it sound like she did it thinking that that would end everything, not realizing that her brother is secretly just as much of a monster as her dad.
Her brother was real drinking the Kool-Aid, and maybe she was a little bit working in the shadows too, trying to figure out how to get out of everything.
I do have to just say this. Flavor Aid.
Yeah. Thank you, Pappy.
You're welcome.
Yes, I'm aware it's Flavor Aid. I've watched all the documentaries as well. Photos are in my brain. Should we talk about how she accidentally summons Leon?
I mean, sure. I mean,
Yeah.
it's only an accident in the sense that she didn't like that there were consequences to her own actions.
Well, she didn't believe she could actually summon a demon. She thought it was all smoke
Just
and
a
mirrors.
bunch of hocus pocus.
Yes, she didn't think that she could actually summon one. She wasn't even trying to. She was trying to make clickbait, essentially,
Yeah.
is what she was doing. And the whole thing is that she had to draw out these sigils and everything. And then she was supposed to cut herself. And she's like, well, I'm not fucking doing that. She tripped and caught herself with her hand and scraped her hand up and bled on the sigil. Which honestly is the more realistic of the accidental summoning situation that you could come up with.
Yeah, I could definitely see some people in this room accidentally tripping and scraping the palm of their hand and bleeding on a sigil.
Not one that I made for myself.
I love that Wiggles doesn't even deny it was her. We both looked at her too.
I'm just saying, like, if somebody makes a sigil and there's a tripping hazard, I suppose it is possible.
Well, she is in an ancient, like, dilapidated church. The whole thing is a tripping hazard.
Yeah,
And
it's a big
that's where
tetanus
our
field.
paths differ, because I would look at that and go, that's a bad idea. And she looked at that and went, wee!
Let me record it.
Yes. Different vibes.
Different vibes.
At least you wouldn't go alone.
I mean, no.
You wouldn't go anyway.
I
But
wouldn't go anyway. Trying to get me out my house, and then you want me to go somewhere that's dank and cold and dark? For what? For what? Also that I can be haunted? No. No, thank you. That's not my vibe at all. I like to be warm and cozy and comfy and at home with a blanket and my television. Thank you.
And your cat.
And my cat.
There was a cat in the book, though.
Yeah.
Cheesecake.
Cheesecake.
Oh, God, I loved that fucking cat.
I honestly, there was a point where I almost DNF'd this book and said, fuck it, I don't give a shit if we're doing this for the podcast. I'm going to come to the table saying I DNF'd. Because if that cat died.
There's a very specific moment where the cat does get snatched by the Eld, I believe. And Leon has to go save him. And I was like, listen, if this cat doesn't come back unscathed,
Yeah.
I'm texting both of you being like, pick a different fucking book now.
I'm done. I'm sorry. That's where I draw the line.
They wouldn't have killed the cat. Cheesecake is fine.
You don't know that. People do nasty as shit. Remember that time we read Obsidian Feathers and we were like, they're not going to kill anybody. They killed a child in a pool.
I mean, you're not wrong. Also, the dog in Crimson Peak.
Yeah.
That was unnecessary.
I feel like there was enough justification to be anxious about that cat dying.
Especially because that cat just kept going outside to look at the forest of creepy shit. And I'm like, cat, get your ass back inside.
But that is such cat behavior.
Oh, for
It
sure.
really is.
I don't want to be where you put me. La la la.
That's also like in my head. I was like, why is this cat all of a sudden a Midwest man? Just standing outside looking at the creepy shit. Going to the porch.
I like to think he's also like one of those that has like those big like fluff paws. So like even when they get their claws out, they're like barely able to get them past the fur.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
tough.
Mm-hmm.
He was an orange cat, wasn't he?
He was definitely giving Orange Cat energy. What I had envisioned in my head is he was one of those that's like a mix of Orange Tabby and like White Cat. You know, you
That
see
is
sometimes.
exactly what I had in my head, and real fluffy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I just pictured Ravi, my old cat.
Oh, sweet Ravi.
I was like, this is a lot of Ravi behavior.
It is a lot of Ravi behavior.
Only Robbie would attack those motherfuckers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he would.
He would have been like, "Oh, you want to come for me, bitch?"
But also, you know, that cat would be like, oh, look, you smell like hell. You're my friend.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm going to befriend the demon.
a fellow demon. Thank you.
I did love that little fun fact that apparently cats are the only animals that are in hell and earth. So demons like them. And I'm like,
Okay,
this is
but
fact.
That makes
like-
sense.
I could fully see the underworld being run by cats.
For
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
For
You know?
sure.
And so that's why you got to get in with the good now. Because when you get down there, if you didn't give an appropriate amount of pets and snacks, well, guess what? You get no pets and no snacks.
I mean, Ari used my
Fair
butt
is
as
fair.
a pillow today, so I think I win.
Oh,
You need your cat to go down there and vouch for you.
Right.
And be
Yeah.
like, no, they were good. They got up every time I screamed at them that there was no food in the dish, but in fact there was food in the dish.
Oh God, Radar was the king of that.
well, since we've talked about like literally every character except for one of the main ones, we should probably talk about that demon boy.
Yeah.
Sweet, sweet Leon.
Sweet Sadana.
Yeah.
Consider like, oh, I'm a murderer, but like also I'm in love with you and I get heart eyes every time I look at you. Now bend. And you're like, well, okay, this is a lot of
There was a lot of emotional
contradictions going on.
whiplash
Yeah.
happening with him.
Uh-huh.
I totally get the whole like I'm a demon and I want you, so now I must possess you. It's got like very dragon energy, and I'm okay with that. It was just a little too fast for me.
Yeah. Well, and like I didn't think it was going to be like first start to get something from them that isn't like, hey, you summoned me, knock that shit off. And actually this happened before that, where we just think he's like a mean grumpy guard guy, right? Like the whole like getting her off in the back alley, I was like, hey, okay. This is going a little nice. I like this. I like the build, but also like taboo. Love it. And then it was just like, what if I'm overly emotionally invested in you, even though I'm a demon and I'm not supposed to have emotions, but I have emotions for you because you're special. You're one of a million. Like, ugh. That part got on my nerves real quick.
Yeah. And that's why I said earlier, like, I was way more invested in the cult shit than the romance because, I mean, don't get me wrong, the actual sex scenes.
Sex I was way into. I should clarify.
Yes.
I wasn't not at all into the romance. Like I was like, this is like made for like soap opera.
Yeah, I'm a little the same way on that. I was like not super into the romance. The sex scenes,
Sex scenes were
exquisite.
yeah.
Loved them. I also really appreciate that in that very first one, he gave her a safe word and he brought it up continually to remind her that she has a word to get out of things if things are uncomfortable, because that is a reality of when you have a safe word.
Well, that, and because that's one of my notes too. Not only that, he was just constantly checking in, like when things were starting sexually to like get more intense. The like, are you okay? Are we ready?
Yep.
And I liked that.
Is this
that's
good?
nice.
Because that is how it should be if you
Yeah.
are doing the rougher things.
Yeah.
Is you have a word, you remind them of it, because otherwise sometimes when
Right.
things are going, you forget. And so it's a reminder at the top to be like, hey, you can stop this at any moment.
Well, and also the reminder of like, your word is mercy. If you use other words, I'm going to assume you're just like,
You're
playing.
still
You're
playing,
playing
the game.
around.
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you say stop, it doesn't mean stop. You have to
Yes.
say this one word.
Well, and even not even just like playing the game, but like you are like expressing concern about hitting your threshold but aren't there yet,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Part of the game is pushing your boundaries, right?
Because that is, and I've said this on the podcast before, that is the biggest thing
Mm-hmm.
about those type of sexual experiences is that people who don't understand BDSM
Yeah.
think that the dom is in charge. That is not in reality the truth. The sub has all the power because they have the power to stop it immediately
Right.
if it's done correctly.
Right.
Which is a little like tricky to reconcile in the story. Like ultimately Leon being a demon is just a convenient plot device, and it's not really relevant. He's just a guy, she's just a girl, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
But like it doesn't, I think at one point she even calls out early on, she's like, I didn't think you would be the type of guy to have demons have safe words. Like, what is that? And so it doesn't quite reconcile. So you have to sort of like forget that he's supposed to be this big bad demon who does only bad things, and be like, oh, well, he's going to be soft and sweet with me. And that's a tricky turn to, like, I think if you want to do that, you almost have to make them, if not gray, you have to make them at least a lighter black
Yeah.
of a character, you know?
I will say is that he mentions that that's actually kind of part of demon culture, is that everybody knows that mercy is the end of things, and that's just how it is.
Well, I think his exact word is mercy means stop or I will kill you.
Yeah. Stop or I will make you stop.
Yeah. I think the author tried really hard to rewrite our perception of demons. I think that just needed to happen a little bit earlier on, because a lot of times Leon and Zane talk about that they only want to do things with people who are willing. Like, it's not fun if they are not willing to do all of this. And she talks about hell as if it was just like another realm, like another version of Earth. But I agree with you, Wiggles. I feel like Leon came across too soft. Like, if you're going to say he's a killer, he is the killer. That's his name in this book. And yes, he has killed people, but he was forced to. We do need to see a side of him that is killing people or like doing bad shit by his own choice,
Which he does none of.
No, the only thing he kills are the like elds and golems and stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, those are monsters.
Well,
And
the
they're-
reason
and
that
they're
he's
coming
called
for Ray.
Yeah.
the reason that he's called the killer in the book is because he has killed every person who has ever summoned him except for this family, because they had protections built in. And so he's been held hostage for, I think it's like 3 generations now.
It's something like that. It's a while. I guess I didn't have the. I did not like that Leon was as soft of a boy as he was, for as like tough of a like persona he tried to portray. But I don't have any thing, like, I read a lot of books where the demons aren't like the way we perceive demons, so like that was fine. I just feel like there's a lot of build up in the beginning of him being like this, like, I'm a bad boy, and then
he just
hard
immediately
eyes.
is not. Yeah.
Well, I think that in what you said, you clarified it, but I don't think you realized it, is that when we read other books where demons aren't really the bad guys, they're not the bad guys from the jump, right?
Yeah.
Like there might be a bad perception about them or misunderstanding about them, but like Sweet Vengeance or That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon, like that kind of thing, like they are from the jump not that bad.
Yeah.
right.
Versus this idea that Leon it's not just that the world is portraying demons as being these evil bad things. It's Leon is portraying himself as being evil bad thing. And so it's like, are you full of shit? Or are we supposed to take that you've just found essentially your soulmate and that made you a big old soft boy, which is then contradicted later on in the book, because Ray is like, I don't want the demonic version of the white picket fence.
Right.
And so it's like, well, which is it? Because you're sending mixed signals. You're trying to say, and I think what it ultimately comes down to is the author is trying to say that Leon is one thing while simultaneously contradicting it in literally everything he does.
Yeah. I did have a note when I was reading this that I had wished it was a fated mate trope, because that would have explained a lot of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agreed. I expected it to kind of be their version of it, and it just never came up.
No.
And honestly, if it would have came up, at the very least I would have been like, okay, then this makes more sense.
Yeah.
Right. And then for the author to then turn around and be like, no, that's not even what Ray wants. And it's like, but that's what you're setting up.
Yeah.
So.
And I would have been fine with that if there would have been a conversation between Ray and Leon of, I don't want to just like, what do we do now? And like actually had a conversation and a resolution, but to have it almost be like a throwaway thought that never gets returned to.
Yeah.
Was kind of like, okay.
They don't even in like the epilogue really explain like that they had,
right,
you know, this conversation or decided what they're going to do from now on. And
well, and for me, and this is specifically, I think maybe for somebody who's a bit of a commitment phobe, that like the idea that's they're selling as the fantasy, right, is that Ray is going to now be with Leon forever. That's horrifying to me. That's not appealing. Like the idea that I am going to be cemented in stone with you for eternity makes me want to crawl out of my fucking skin. And you know, I guess
mean,
they're in love or whatever, but like you're gonna tell me that 70 years down the road you're not gonna be tired of being around the same person with their same bad habits or their same like irritable things, and you're not going to be like, oh yeah, I want to keep doing this for a fucking millennia? Yeesh. That sounds awful.
I think that from Leon's perspective, I get the forever idea. Like we got a lot of explanation as to why he did not want to be with a human without their soul. He has had relationships before, they die. He's a sad romantic. This boy is
a sad boy.
It's just a big old romantic at heart.
Soft.
Yeah. From Ray, like that was her whole thing. She didn't want to, it was a big commitment, and she didn't give her soul over to him until she was literally dying, and he was dying, and everybody was dying.
Yes.
Well, and her in that moment, it kind of feels like, well, this is the lesser of two things, because I don't want that fucking squiddly motherfucker having my soul.
I would have done that as soon as I fell down the hole before I went into the water.
Same. And I feel real bad. Like I know Victoria's kind of a bitch, but the fact that she was just naked at the bottom of the mine shaft, like, oh,
I think it really portrays how much Kent fucked up Jeremiah and Victoria. Especially when Jeremiah is saying like, you spend your whole life trying to convince your father that he should kill the other one.
Yeah,
that's real fucked up.
You can also tell that their brains are altered by seeing this demon that they have in captivity that ultimately goes and murks all these people.
Well, it shows that Jeremiah has no concept of what is actually happening, because he sits there and fucking like taunts Leon and acts like he can control Leon. It's like, bro, you don't have that power over him.
Well, Leon almost kills him when at the beginning.
Yes.
Bro, this is kind of foolish.
So, like, yeah, his dad controlled him for a long time, but he knew at that point that his dad didn't have control, and he just, like, stuck his foot in his mouth, and you're like, what the fuck are you doing, bud?
Yeah, and that's a repeated thing until eventually he does have enough power to stop Leon.
But it's killing him.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to care.
I don't think he realizes.
Yeah. Well,
he's a real big dum-dum.
Well, he's just trying to complete the ritual, right? And I'm sure the thought process in his perspective, in Jeremiah's perspective, is once I complete the ritual, I will have the power of the god and I will be this all-powerful human. But
that's not what's going to happen.
Right. The thing that Leon is saying is like, that god don't give no fucks about you. Like when he's released and comes back to Earth, you guys are just
fucking dead.
Yeah.
He doesn't give a shit.
Which is confirmed when we meet the god.
Yeah.
Not to get too in the weeds of this like occult thing. The other part that's confusing to me is that at one point when Leon is helping Ray, like, because after she throws up all these drugs, she's like goes with Leon to go search for a weapon in their house, which is again like, why don't you take a break? Go home. Reevaluate your life. Anyway, but
just leave. Like,
literally.
Get out of the fucking town.
And she's like, no, we've got to find a weapon here. And Leon's like, I guess I see the logic. And was like, no, you don't, bro. You're just an idiot. Anyway, so she's like face to face with Kent, and he's got a gun. And he makes some statement of like, one bullet will kill her. And while it's not the most dramatic sacrifice, dead is dead. And I'm like, So if all you needed to do the whole time
Right.
was fucking kill them, just do it. Like, what?
Yeah, why you're doing all the cloak and dagger bullshit.
Yeah, there does not
Right.
there does not seem to be any like for it to be any like big ritualistic thing. Just kill those 3 people.
I think they still had to like carve the sigils into him, but it does heavily imply from what he said is that it can be done after they're already dead.
Right.
Right. So why, like,
Why is he being stupid? Like,
that brings up a great point.
snatch her up.
You know where she lives.
Yeah.
She lives alone. She has no protection. Just
She lives
go,
alone in the middle of the woods.
Yes.
Right. Just go to her fucking house, kill her, take her away. Or even just take her away if you want.
Yeah.
Like,
This
this
is
should have happened
dumb.
a long time ago.
Right? So dumb. Honestly, the plot only continues if characters are too dumb to get out of their own goddamn way.
Yeah.
So this, yeah.
I still have to say, like, I know we've kind of ragged on Ray a lot about her choices, but the big one that I don't get from the beginning of the book, like literally before the book even starts, her parents, so they grew up in California, but this small town, it was where her dad grew up, so they had a house, they would visit all the time, whatever, she's got childhood memories. But then her parents moved to Spain of all places and say, do you want to come with us? And I'm sorry, like, independence is great, but you're going to take me to Spain?
Yeah.
That's where I'm going.
I would have fucking gone to Spain too.
Right.
I had the same thought. I was like, so your parents moved to Spain and said you could come with them to go be educated in Spain.
Right, go to college in Spain.
It's Spain.
What are you doing?
You know what? As a character who Ray reminded me the most of, minus the whole glasses thing, is Elena Gilbert.
Yes, you are so fucking right.
And yeah, just like
Oh my God.
insufferable. And you're just like, why are you making these dumb choices? You don't have to continue to live in Mystic Falls, you stupid, stupid bitch.
Damn it!
Don't
Now that's like
understand this reference.
the Vampire Diaries.
Vampire Diaries.
That's actually a really good recommendation for this.
That is my recommendation.
Fair
so don't
enough.
You snatch it.
I'm not gonna, but I didn't even think about that because I was like thinking like books. No, that's a great fucking recommendation.
Yeah.
Damn. Because in my head I kept thinking like she's kind of Bella, but she's kind of not. She's
Elena.
and
fucking
Elena, you
Gilbert.
know, is the worst fucking character in the Vampire
Oh,
Diaries.
for sure. And
God.
anyway, Danny, like, here's the thing. I'm just and for anyone listening at home who's never watched this show, let me be very clear. You're not exactly missing anything. However, if you just want some drama that is literally only exists because the characters are stupid and horny, that's the show for you.
Yeah. I can forgive them a little bit because they're in high school in the first couple of seasons, but eventually, you know, it's
But you can't forgive the adults in
Yes.
the room, and you certainly can't forgive the like 100-year-old vampires in the room. Like, why are you so dumb?
oh my God.
Anyway, we're not talking about that. We're talking about her soul to take. Jesus. If I get on a Vampire Diaries rant, I won't stop. So we're going to hard cut right there.
We haven't really talked about the sexy times.
Oh,
I was
let's
just
do.
thinking we need to talk about the sexy time.
So here's my like initial thing about the sexy time is that whenever they finally shut the fuck up, I loved it.
Oh my God, they were so good. All the scenes were varied, which
Yes.
I really appreciate. They were interesting, like different positions and everything,
Yes.
and using like telekinetic powers to hold her
And
down and
exploring
everything.
kink.
Exploring kink. I hate needles, and I didn't hate the nipple piercing thing.
I actually was kind of super into it, and I was like, listen, nobody's piercing these nips. They get sore enough as it is. But kind of
See,
into it.
I kind of had the same reaction. I was like, ooh, okay, I'm kind of into that. Again, a moment of what Danny likes in a book is not what Danny would like in realities, because needles need to go nowhere near those.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a similar but different reaction where I was like, how correct is this about how nipple piercings work? And then I hopped on the internet and went, how do nipple piercings work?
And
the main thing that she seemed to get wrong, and this could have just been a choice, the main thing that they seemed to get wrong, and this is probably just a choice because it was also like we're having the sexy times, is you're usually lying down to make sure that everything is in the right place.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah. And especially because Leon didn't like mark her, it just like stabbed. They're probably not level.
Well, he's got secret demon powers that
Yeah.
allow him to level piercings.
I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I have not thought about it for myself, but also like kind of thought about it.
Mhm.
And The thing that kind of bothered me about the rest of the book is anytime they had sexy times and she only mentioned once that they were tender. And I'm like, bitch, you would not want him touching your nipples for like a month at least.
Yeah.
I will say
Except
at least
that she likes pain.
she does like pain. I will say it was never explicitly like he touched them. It's that like his chest bumped into hers or something like that.
There was a couple times where he did. He put
there
his
was
mouth
one
on
where
them.
he was soothing her by stroking her nipple and be like, "It's gonna be fine." That one took me out. I was like, "That ain't the way."
No.
By the way, so I heard this on, I think it was a TikTok, but it was somebody explaining. She goes, "Here's the thing. I have a tip for anybody who is getting their nipples pierced, and that is to make sure that you do not lay down with any sort of knit blanket for quite a long time." And I have never once considered getting my nipples pierced. I don't like needles that much. Tattoo me all day long, needles, no. And that thought made me want to rip my own nipples off in that moment. I was like, oh dear Lord.
Yeah, some of the suggestions I saw on like Reddit where usually you actually wear a bra to bed for a while because like even having a t-shirt that could accidentally get snagged is a problem.
Yeah.
See, that's my biggest hurdle in getting anything pierced. It's like I've always wanted to pierce my eyebrow and do things like that, and then I'm always like, but like the maintenance.
I will say with that, I don't know how much I would like to be like trying to get off while it happened, because all I could think in my head is like, what if you have a little spasm from pleasure and all of a sudden the piercing's bad.
I have to assume he's holding one of them.
He has one of the he has the clamps. Yeah.
And so he's like ready to like not let it jiggle while she wiggles, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I will say it was hot, but also not realistic, but that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it kind of took me out of it, but it seemed fine for you guys.
I thought it was pretty hot.
I thought here's what I will say for that is, we get a lot of the same. We get a lot of the same. And this was different.
This was very different.
We got dildo, we got a vibrator, and we got pierced nips.
Yep.
All at the same time. And that is different.
I really liked the table scene.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, I'll never be able to look at that coffee table the same ever again.
There you go. Yeah. I'm not going to describe it, so
no,
it happened. It was a good time.
The first fuck was in a cemetery. That was kind of cool, kind of fun. Although my inner person who was raised by somebody who worked in the death industry was like, that's really disrespectful. But
also, technically, wasn't it a graveyard? Because it was right next to the church that they were in.
Yes.
Facts.
Got him.
Graveyards are attached to a church. Cemeteries are not.
Correct.
What's the other one?
Your face is attached to a church.
There's a third one. What is it? Who's to say? It's gone now. Well, a mausoleum has the whole to do.
I know. But yeah, I just had this inner thought of, that's a little disrespectful that you're fucking on somebody's grave, but like.
Yeah, I guess. If you're. Yeah.
Clearly, they didn't give a single fuck.
No, they didn't. But.
Like he told her what he was going to do. And he followed through on it, Like, gotta give him that. He's a demon of his word.
He's a demon of his word.
There's that.
I did like that. Like, I did like the lust that came with it a lot. I kind of wish it was like, I don't know. There needed to be more wishy-washiness. And not like in lack of consent, but just like regret, remorse. Oh, we're going to do it again. Like, oh no, what was this choice I just made? I wanted more of that.
Well, and that I think is part of the thing about Ray that's sort of confusing is that she's so incredibly naive in like so many things that she does, but then is like, listen, I like what I like and I like pain with my sex. And it's like, you're 21.
Well, and there's also levels of that, right? Like,
right, but like it certainly implies that you've had time and opportunity to experiment to find out that that's what you like.
Well, we do know that she had an ex-girlfriend who apparently broke her heart.
Yes.
Rachel. Which, could you imagine? Your name is Ray and you're dating a Rachel. I don't know. It's too similar. I don't like names that are too similar. So you were talking about the pain thing, though, and like I guess I understand why Ray has like she's probably had several sexual encounters, so she's built up to this. But then we get to the belting scene, and maybe it's just me, and I cannot envision that to be enjoyable. But every time there's a belting scene in a book, I'm just like, oh no, thank you. Spanking scenes, love it. Belting, I'm like, that's too much.
I can see where it could be.
those hurt.
I'm aware, and I'm not saying that I would necessarily like it. Spanking, absolutely. But I can see where you would go.
The other thing that took me out about that is literally the scene after the belting and the sex is she's sitting outside on a log, and I'm like, girl, you can't sit down for a while.
The only thing I could think is the way she was describing it from the way they were describing it from Ray's point of view. It wasn't like he was hitting her full force.
Oh, well, no. Yeah.
Like even for like other scenes like that I've read before, like it was pretty tame.
Sure.
For what he was doing. So maybe it wasn't that bad, but
sometimes the belting is more about the sound of the leather as opposed to actually the force.
In some scenes it's not.
Some scenes it's not, and in those scenes I'm like, my butthole hurts for you.
All the way up in the butthole.
All the way up in the butthole. I clenched everything on your behalf.
I did really like the aftercare though, which was back to the table scene. People can bring me cookies and was it hot chocolate or tea or something?
Mint tea.
For any reason. It doesn't have to be sexual. Just literally any reason. And I'll be like, I like you. You can stick around.
Note to self. Bring Liz cookies and tea.
I don't think that was a secret.
I know it's not a secret. I've brought you cookies and things before.
I've brought you cookies and I've bought you tea before, so like I think I've nailed it.
Yeah. That's why I'm secretly in love with you.
I've known the whole time.
I was gonna say I don't think that's a secret to anyone.
Well, there's a difference between loving somebody and being in love with them.
Absolutely true. Back to the aftercare. I'm really pleased that they did show the aftercare. I think that is a big neglect thing in some of these books where they do go into the BDSM situation, is where they don't show the aftercare. And aftercare can go in many different situations. Sometimes it's the cuddling hands-on situation. Sometimes it's just bringing them a snack and a drink. And sometimes it's knowing when your partner needs you to leave them alone so that they can emotionally readjust.
Right.
And I feel like that's very important to put in these books when there is scenes like that, because otherwise there is a expectancy, I think, of sometimes people think that is how things are supposed to be, and that is not how things are supposed to be in that kind of relationship.
And I've read books where the BDSM, the Dom part of it is also a part of the actual relationship. Like there's a very domineering aspect to the entire relationship, and like those are the ones that I don't find as enjoyable. I like ones like this where like in the moment it's very much about like the sexual play, and then afterwards it's like, okay, let's go back to like our actual like moment to moment interactions.
I also really like that they set it up with that first scene, or first sexual scene, I should say, in the back alley. That sort of set us up to understand where Ray's perspective was on all of this, and that there was this desire to explore and be pushed and to play with the submission domination thing. And it wasn't just, I've decided I like a guy and he happens to be domineering and therefore I have to submit in order to be with him. And those are the ones that I don't like.
I agree with that.
I agree with that 100%. I also like that they even periodically through the book gave us Ray's perspective in certain situations to let us know that she is 100% on board. She is fine with this, as well as doing the verbal check-ins.
Yes.
And so it's very much showing that this is 100% a consensual relationship. There isn't any force happening here. This is something that she likes and he likes.
Yeah, because there's a lot of books where there's this like emotional manipulation, even if it's not entirely intentional from the male, or like it's typically the male perspective, where it feels like, again, there has not been enough education on what is happening. And even though we didn't really see much education from Ray's perspective, or like Leon kind of like telling her this is what we're doing, but just because he was constantly checking in and like, and even explaining like, this is, I'm gonna fuck your ass, and be like, are you okay with that? And that felt way better than Wiggles, like you said, those books were just kind of like, oh, this is what he likes, so that's what I'm gonna do.
Right. And it almost feels like, well, yes, the women in those stories, they consent.
Yeah.
Yes. But it almost feels like a bit of a coercion sort of thing.
It's a dubious consent situation where I don't like those necessarily.
Yeah.
That I really appreciated how this sexual relationship was set up in this book. There was never a moment where I didn't believe that they were both 100% on board and everything was being taken care of and that she had an out if she needed it.
Well, even Ray felt like that too, because like her internal monologue is, I know he will stop if I ask him.
Well, another scene that really does that really well is the deal that's struck for Leon to help her find this weapon or talisman or something that they can find in Kent's house is that if he does this with her, then he gets to pierce her nipples. And like the thing is, I think genuinely, if she said, I really don't think I can go with through, that he would be disappointed, but he would have accepted it and he would say someday.
Yes.
Right? That I really liked, that because we got that scene from her perspective, you understand that she's got anxiety, concern, and anticipation and desire all wrapped up into it, and that it's not just this like, yeah, I guess I'm just gonna like volunteer to get my nipples pierced so I can protect myself, because I guess what else am I gonna do?
I feel like they were very intentional on the POVs for the sexual scenes to give us the information that everything is fine.
Well, and I liked a lot once we got to the nipple piercing scene, instead of it being like from Ray, oh, well, I promised that I would do this, so I guess we're going to do it. It was Leon being like, remember you said we can do this? Do you still want to?
Yep.
Right.
Like, this is the time to say no.
Yeah.
And then he made it real fun for her.
Yes. Well, and I do like that he took that consideration into it, even if it's not like the best thought out. But in his defense, he admits he's never pierced a human before. And I'm like, how many demons have you pierced?
At least one, because we know
At
he
least
did
one.
Zane's tongue.
Yeah. If I were Ray, though, I would have been like, fine. But then you get a Prince Albert.
That actually would have been so fucking hot.
Oh my God,
Even if it
would've.
wasn't the Prince Albert, if it was like literally anything, it would have been so hot of like, yeah, fine, but I'm piercing you, motherfucker.
Right? And he probably would have been like, yeah.
Oh, yeah, he would have been totally down for it. I wouldn't have been able to like physically do it myself, but I maybe would have been like, get Zane over here.
And he also would have been like, yeah.
That would have been my solution. Be like, okay, I can't physically do that. I won't be able to do it. I know I won't, but I know who can.
Yeah. I think though the mark had to be done by her for the vibes, but I mean Zane could have just held her hand and been like, just hold on.
Yeah.
Just hold on.
Yeah. Here's the thing though, I think Ray would have. Like I
yeah.
think she probably would have wanted Zane there for like support, but I think she would have been like, hee.
That actually, I really hope that happens in a future book.
Yes.
Like where we just get a moment from Zane's perspective or whatever when he has to be there and Ray has to pierce Leon. That would be cool, and I want it.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
The way I would want it to show up in the books is that he goes home to Juniper and is like, so let me tell you about my day.
That is great, and I love it.
Perfect Wigglesby right corner to stick in there.
Oh my God, that would be so fucking funny.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm
Hey, Junie, let me tell you about the day.
I'm a little conflicted if I'm going to read the next books. I think at some point I will, just because Juniper sounded like such a badass, and I love a bitch on a revenge mission.
Oh,
Yes.
God.
Yes.
Her just like sitting there watching the house burn.
Yeah.
I'm like,
And I love the simp fucking demon, because Zane, like the way he looks at Juniper just comes off as a little simpy, and I'm like,
But I also really like the Everly and Callum. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Dynamic where he's clearly full golden retriever for this girl.
Oh yeah.
And I'm into that as well. A golden retriever demon who is also like, but we're gonna play sexy games. And you're like, okay.
But is so strong that he just like quite easily just rocked Leon's shit.
Yeah. Well, Leon, it seems to be a younger demon from what we hear.
Well, and Callum is an archdemon and everything, but like he couldn't even hear him coming.
Yeah.
He just like rocked his shit, and the only reason that Leon's not dead is Because Everly's like, what? No.
Well, even Zane seems older than Leon
Yes.
because he makes a joking comment and calls him boy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm interested to read the other books because I think we will find more out about certain situations because we get Juniper's perspective
Yes.
and we get Everly's perspective. So I think we would actually end up finding out a lot more about what actually happened to Ken, about who actually did it.
Mhm.
I really am guessing it was Everly.
The more I think about it, the more I think it was her.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. And I'm fairly confident that this God situation is not over.
Yeah.
It's a God. They don't just go away because one human couldn't complete the task.
Well, the third book is about Everly, right? And so
Yeah.
it's on her mission to kill the god. So
Yeah. I just think there is not an option at the moment for the ritual to be completed because she's her father's only child and her soul can no longer be taken.
Ray, yeah.
If they have kids.
we have demon.
True.
there was a whole shtick though where
Oh yeah,
Leon was like, basically, I can pump you full of cum and it won't matter. And you're like, say that less.
I was like, say that more, but you have to be a witch to have a child with a demon.
So yeah, then it's possible that the ritual can't be completed because her soul can't be taken, and unless her father were to have another kid.
Well, so here's my thought, and it feels very much like a Vampire Diaries plot.
They do be popping up random new people all the time in that show.
So here's my thought is like, okay, the way that he owns her soul is by having his mark on her, right? And like, well, then can't you just cut that flesh off? You know what I'm saying?
Sorry, I don't know why that hurt me so much, but
I would imagine the answer is no, because once your soul's given to someone, like, can it be ungiven?
It was already given to the demon god.
but not willingly by her.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like,
It
feels like the back door that's like
Right there.
available.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I will say I'm super confused about how Ray got out of the mine. I couldn't figure that out.
Yeah.
Did Leon go down and get her? But it didn't seem like he did. It seems like he found her on
On the shore.
Yeah,
I think like the mine and this is, I was also confused, but I think what happened is like, because the god was throwing a hissy fit, I think the mine like collapsed in and she got washed into the ocean in some sort of back channel
Then
situation.
How the fuck is she alive?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't have all the answers, but that's kind of what I'm thinking happened, is that in kind of a back channel situation, she got erupted from
Okay.
it. And then
All right.
he was calling to her through their link.
Yeah, sure.
So she could hear his voice saying that she was almost there.
I got that part.
Yeah.
I was just very confused as to where the there was.
Mm-hmm.
I won't lie to you. By the time that was happening, I was pretty checked out. I was just like, yeah, we know. So, you know, wasn't real invested after. I was like, there's no chance of sexy time after this. So.
Yeah.
They were really good sexy times.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've gotten hot and bothered enough. So, I think it's ratings time.
Woohoo!
Ooh.
What is your spice rating?
Ooh.
For me, this was the best part of the book.
It was.
I just honestly wish there was more because it was the best part of the book.
There was also like 6 different sex scenes, and they were intricate.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's just the rest of the book was yada, yada, yada. So for me, I'm going to say it was a 4, maybe a 4.5, but I'm going to say a 4.
I think I'm going to give it a 4.5 purely from like thinking of the other books that I've given a 4, like Butcher and Blackbird and stuff. And this feels like a little bit more. So we're going to do a 4.5.
It's legit.
Yeah.
I'm going to agree with a 4.5 and only solely because of the piercing scene.
Yeah.
All
That,
right, you
that really
talked me
tipped it
up.
over.
I'll go to 4.5.
Woohoo!
Gavel, gavel.
Gavel, gavel. What's your romance rating?
Honestly, romance is like a 2.
I think a 2 is generous.
Yeah.
I'm sitting over here at like a 1 or a 1.5.
I'm going to give it a 1.5 because what was there was annoying. So
Yeah.
I didn't want it.
I'll do the 1.5 as well.
I will stick with the 2.
But then we can't gavel, gavel.
Yeah, that's the point.
We will make sure you're not last so you don't pull these shenanigans, Dan. I'm on to you.
Okay, what's your overall rating?
I gave it a 4. I liked the culty aspect of it, and I really love the sex scenes and everything like that. I just wasn't overly a big fan of the romance, but the rest of the book I absolutely loved. And I am very intrigued by the other characters who have their other books too, which is always kind of a big thing with me.
Right, yeah.
I'm going to go with a 3. Like, it was fine. If you took the sex out of it, I wouldn't read it. So that's where I stand with it. Like, I feel like the sex brings it up.
Right.
The rest of it brings it down. So you meet in the middle of it.
I was, so we don't do quarters. And I think like my ultimate would be a 3.75, but a part of me can't give it a 4. I can't quite do it when I think about other 4s in my brain. So I'm going to go 3.5.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And I agree with you. The sex was one of the best parts. Me and Danny did like the cult stuff. So that's why it's a little bit higher. The romance was like,
cult stuff?
Yes, I was here for the cult stuff.
I was here for the
I
cult
was
stuff.
here for the cult stuff. What are your recommendations?
Well, I guess I'll do mine first since we already talked about it during the episode. Go check out Vampire Diaries. Equally stupid decisions, equally cult stuff. So, yeah. And Elena Gilbert's the worst. Cheers to that.
She is, but some of the other characters make up for it.
It's true. It's true.
Caroline, I like Carol. I just like her emotional arc, but that's a different topic
She
for a
seemed
different
like she
time.
was going to be the worst. She was going to be the most annoying. And then by the end of it, you're like, I was rooting for you.
Yes.
I also have a very similar recommendation, and it is the show, not the books.
Okay.
True Blood.
True Broad.
Like that just came from our souls.
Because again, they're there for the cult stuff and
Yeah.
equally stupid decisions made,
Yeah.
and
Especially the second season.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like it really vibes with the second season.
And Eric Northman.
Ugh.
What else needs to be said? That man is so hot.
I know.
But yes, so very similar vibes there. A little
Yeah.
more adulty on my end, but you know.
I like that you specifically said not the books, because as somebody who's also read at least a couple of the books,
Yeah, no, they're
They
they're
took those, but I only read the first one, and I was like, you took something and made it entirely something else. Like they should not even have the same like character names, nothing, because those are not the same story at all.
it's like the
all.
most basic concept from the book.
Yes.
yes.
I was like, it's almost a travesty to say that they're related to the books, because like, you convince people to go back and read the books, and they're like, the fuck is this shit?
I read the first one and was like, what is this hot garbage?
I know. I think I read the first 2 because I was like, okay, the first one is no bueno, but sometimes they get better. It did not.
Sometimes the first one's just not as good.
Yeah.
Okay, my recommendations. I'm going to start off with Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, because there's
Here for the cult stuff.
The cult stuff.
and in a mine.
Yes, absolutely.
It was true. And
Also
way
a
more
very
demon-y.
good show.
Yes, way more demony. Specifically the first season, not the demony. The demony gets way more later, but I would say the first season matches this book a little bit. And then this is like a selfish plug, and I'm gonna just put this book out there, though I'm not the only one who recommends this for her soul to take, but I'm gonna recommend Pestilence by Laura Thalassa. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. It is a significantly more emotionally mature book, but the kind of relationship between Pestilence, one of the 4 horsemen, who it is literally the 4 horsemen. This is not like, oh, we're just calling him that, but it's actually, no, this is literally him, and we're in an apocalypse now. And the relationship between him and Sarah is kind of like some of the back and forth we got at the beginning between Rhea and Leon, only the whole book and significantly more emotionally mature. So, but the
how's
sex,
sex?
oh, it's very tame. It's
Oh,
so slow
really?
burn. It is so slow burn. You don't get sex until like way towards the end of the book, and
That
it
is
is
not what I was expecting.
tame. Me either, but I surprisingly was fine with it. It matched the vibe of the book.
So if it matches the vibe of the book, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's when it's like, you're like, I'm going to get you so hard. I'm going to get you so much.
they
And
do
then
that
they
for
don't.
Yeah.
20 chapters, and then they finally kiss, and you're like,
I would say
Bruh.
that the reviews I read on Goodreads do not match this book. Like if you read some of the reviews, they're like, "Ugh, this is just trashy smut," and I'm like, "What fucking smut are you talking about? This is about their emotional growth. Are you reading a different book than me?"
well, so here's the thing that, and maybe it doesn't always come across in my ratings and perspectives on the books, but as somebody who has read true erotica,
Yes,
because I got tricked by Anne Rice, and I was like, I like Anne Rice books. Ooh, spicy Anne Rice, let's go. And then I was like,
Yeah, but also remember some of that fan fiction we read as in
right.
high school. Some of the
Yep.
shit we read in high school,
Right.
not appropriate.
And so when I see people being like, this is too spicy for me, and I'm like, they referenced that they had sex and then it faded to black. What you talking about? Anyway, like I don't know how to
Yeah.
I don't know how to have that conversation. Don't know how to bridge that divide.
Well, and everybody's perspective on sex is different,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
that's fine. But don't be giving me your perspective then when it's just like so drastically different than what I would expect.
Yeah, I feel like you have to, like, if you're going to say that something is hella spicy and you're not somebody who reads spice, you need to put that in the like a disclaimer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
You
right.
know?
It's almost like on Goodreads you need like the blue check mark, except it's like the blue like a red spice pepper that's next to you
Yes.
that says you've read enough spice that you could be a spicy romance reviewer.
Yes. Please, Goodreads, please implement that tomorrow. I need that so bad. Because I'll be like, yes, I can trust you.
You know what you're talking about. Thank you.
Yes. Oh my God.
Oh no. Okay. Well, folks, that brings us to the end of the episode. If you liked this, you can find us out there on the socials at Wrong Dust Jackets, primarily on TikTok and Instagram, but really anywhere. You can also find us on our website at wrongdustjackets.com, where you'll find all sorts of episodes that we've done before, some list of things we have coming up, as well as our blog, which I might update. Who's to say? We would love it, folks, if you left us 5 stars, a like, a comment, whatever, on whatever podcast listening app you're on. If you're on YouTube, say whatever you want in the comments. It'll be great. We love it. We'll respond. It'll make me happy. Don't you want to make me happy after? Anyway, folks, that's what I got. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.